Ms. Lowe, you have a
Yes,
comment?
Your Worship, I have inclusion of some late items for City Council with respect to the proposed hotel at RMR. Some comments that will be placed under correspondence on the agenda through a resolution.
So all those in favor of adopting the agenda? Motion's carried with those
late items,
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
So now that you're all in receipt of those lead items, I'm going to ask for the adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting of January 8th, 2019. Councilor Charlotte, Councilor Yonkers, all those in favor. Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to go on to the announcements from the mayor. On Saturday, I had the pleasure of spending most of the day in a Revelstoke Forum for Minor Hockey Day. I was invited to drop the puck for the kids and watch them play, and actually did that with Mr. Aaron Patty. So it was kind of an honor to be on the ice with Aaron and watch him interact with the kids. Incredible person, but really good perpetuator of minor hockey as these kids grow up. And then later in the day, I had the pleasure of dropping the puck for the Grizzlies. So it was a good day, and I'm appreciative to the community for all they do for minor hockey here in the community. So moving on, we have delegations and presentations. So our first delegation is Councillor Chad Eliason from the Southern Interior Local Government Association. Chad is also a director on CSRD and with Salmon Arm City Council.
Thanks.
Councillor Eliason.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. And welcome to the world of municipal politics. Your learning curve is quite steep. I was first elected to council in 2005 in Salmon Arm. So what SILGA is you're in Revelstoke, you're part of the Columbia Shuswap Regional District. That regional district is within one of 5 areas within the province. So SILGA makes up 1/5 of the province, generally in population and in size, but not all of that all works. You guys have all read the PowerPoint slides in detail. Okay, good. We're going to read those all again. And then at the end, we're going to have a 45-minute question and answer period. So there. So this is what we do. That's who we are. Here's the map. So as you can see, we go from the border, the U.S. border, all the way up to like Blue River, Revelstoke. We strategically cut out Golden because nobody likes those guys in any shape or form. And somehow we got Lytton and Lillooet, but they kept Whistler from us. So essentially what we do is we have 37 member municipalities and regional districts. When you guys get an issue that you think is not just a Revelstoke issue, that you want advocacy to happen for on provincial or federal level, that's when you make the motion, the resolution here. You forward that on to SILGA. The end of our resolution cutoff, I believe, is March 1st, so you have about a month to A, figure out what you're doing here, and B, how to write a Gold Star resolution, which your CAO will do for you. And then you guys vote on it, and then you send it to SILGA by March 1st. For example, Chase had some issues with mining in their watershed. Spall Machine had some issues with agriculture in their watershed, right? Lumby had some issues with logging in their watershed. Individually, those are small pieces. Nobody cares. Like, let's be serious. However, when you get 3 watershed issues that are the result of a Crown sort of issue or item or rule or regulation, you put those together, we advocate on behalf of all of the region. You can meet with the Minister of Environment and say, hey, look, what's going on? Because these are affecting our water sources in our municipalities. We need to do something about this. Hey, we need the roads open. We need to recruit healthcare professionals to small rural places. We need to stop zebra and quagga mussels. We need to so on and so forth. So that's where we work, and that's who we represent. If we're too big for the little ones, we're too little for the big ones. Those are our members. We want to connect, educate, advocate. I just said submit your resolutions to us, and then we'll advocate at the Union of British Columbia Municipalities. So I sit on the Columbia Shuswap, City of Salmon Arm City Council, the Columbia Shuswap Regional District. I'm the past president of SILGA. I sit on the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Board of Directors, and the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia Board of Directors as well, and some other things. So I've been around for quite a long time, so I remember what it was like my first day, my first SILGA, which is in Penticton this year. And I encourage you all to go to it, to learn more, to connect with other people. It's the only time you're going to get a chance to really learn what the job's all about, except for tomorrow in Kelowna, which I'll see some or most of you there. Some of the things that we found this year: state of emergency legislation. In order to get provincial funding for forest fires, they have to declare a state of emergency. Well, what do people in Saskatchewan, Alberta hear when they hear state of emergency? They hear the whole province is shut down, and we might just be smoky, and it stops their trips. So we've asked them to change how they word that, so that they can still release the funds under the state of emergency, but we still can attract people. Rural roads, maintenance, paving, Greyhound alternatives. Coming up, housing. I heard you guys have some issues with that. We're going to steal your building inspectors. Climate change. Nobody pays enough money into your stormwater infrastructure. You guys don't know this yet because you're probably just going through your first budgeting process, but your stormwater management is going to come under more pressure all the time, and you never budget enough for it. And then drugs in rural areas. So here's what's coming up in Penticton. You should all come to it. It'll be worth it. Some speakers. You're gonna figure out what the resolutions are. You're gonna learn some stuff, and you're gonna talk to some regional people about that. So that's my presentation. My 5 minutes is up.
Awesome.
And Your Worship, if you guys have issues or you have anything you'd like to be addressed or any questions, I'm here to listen or do my best to answer on wearing any of my hats.
Okay. So is there any councillors that have any questions for Councillor Eliason at this point?
CSRD, how does that fit into SILGA? So is that a separate entity or?
Yeah, much like Revelstoke would be able to submit a resolution, CSRD would also be able to, because if you're in area, any one of the areas, like David, right? So David would be, if there was an issue in his area, he'd be able to submit a resolution, or CSRD would submit a resolution to SILGA on behalf of that area. So area B, C, D, A.
We're within the CSRD area.
Yes, Area B.
Yeah, but your voice could come through the regional district as well. But you guys have a voice here at this table. You guys as a mayor and council can submit a resolution or have a resolution, whereas, therefore be it resolved, boom, and we would take it to SILGA and debate it amongst us. David's would come through CSRD.
Awesome. Anyone else? Well, thank you, Chad.
Thanks for
coming.
Yeah, I'll be in Kelowna. If you guys have questions or if something comes up and you're like, hey, what do we do about this? Unfortunately, I probably have the answer or have somebody to talk to for you. So feel free to hit me up or let me know. I'll do my best.
Great. Appreciate you taking the time to come here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm going to leave now so I don't get real stuck.
It's a highway issue.
That was probably Raven or McKee. And they probably did it as an economic driver at some point. It was just silently done. I blame those guys. It couldn't have been him. Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Thanks again, Chad. So, Council, we're going to move on to our second delegation regarding mobile home park redevelopment. And Mr. John Todd is here and would like to speak. John, if you'd like to take the podium, please.
I just have a small thing to read here, and then I'll take questions for 45 minutes after. These are actually just copies that I'll leave with with you after. I, John Tots, have asked permission to appear as a delegation before council to discuss predatory developer practices as they impact Revelstoke's low-income housing crisis and mobile home park neighborhoods, and provide examples of city bylaws that other communities in BC have adopted to address this issue. As you all know, housing affordability is a great concern in Revelstoke. There are many discussions with regards to building more affordable housing, which is a good thing, but it should be considered that protecting that affordable housing that we already have would be a valid strategy. A market like Revelstoke, with a city willing to work with developers to help build our community, provides an incredible wealth of opportunity. New neighborhoods and commercial districts provide jobs and growth, and we all want to see our city prosper. Unfortunately, this fertile market will also attract developers and investors that are less than scrupulous, in many cases downright dishonest, and they ultimately do not have the best interests of this community in mind. Mobile home parks comprise an overwhelmingly large percentage of Revelstoke's affordable housing. They are also historically the targets of such unscrupulous developers. In Revelstoke right now, there are mobile park home residents who are facing eviction by developers who want to repurpose the land for their own use. In our case, our landlord, an experienced developer, has found loopholes that have allowed him to issue our evictions without offering us a single cent in compensation for the homes and investment that we will be losing. To some developers, the human cost is irrelevant. The land is simply worth more without us on it, as if we were vermin that needed to be cleaned out. Most of us mobile home park residents do not have the resources to fight a protracted battle with an experienced developer who can afford a lawyer, knows the loopholes, and what spin to put on things in order to get a judgment in his or her favor. The purpose of this delegation is to provide some examples of bylaws that other communities have adopted as a solution to this issue, and ask the City of Revelstoke to adopt a similar set of bylaws. The bylaws allow a landowner to develop as he or she sees fit and within the law, but ensures that residents of MHPs will, at the very least, be compensated for the loss of their homes and or be given opportunities to remain in the community. Examples of some of these bylaws and a letter to the Council of Coquitlam from the manager of the Planning Department are also attached to this email. Not an email. In his arguments to the Residential Tenancy Branch Arbitrator, our landlord, Gary and Dorothy Gregg, argued that the City of Revelstoke supported redevelopment in the neighborhood and that the arbitrator referenced this in her decision to uphold his eviction and issue orders of possession. During the process, we approached city staff for help and received nothing other than sympathetic shrugs of the shoulders. As a personal statement, I'd like to say that the City of Revelstoke has failed us in the biggest way possible. Before the fiasco that enveloped the city's planning department last season, our company kept a crew of almost a dozen people working full-time. It is now it is now our third year of business, and instead of heading into a period of prosperity after the struggles of starting a new enterprise, we have laid everyone off, and we will be leaving Revelstoke in the spring, literally bankrupt and homeless. Our hope is that the new Council of City of Revelstoke understands how important these issues are, how the previous council's inaction has led to the utter destruction of people's lives, and we beseech this new council to take concrete action to protect its most vulnerable. I almost made it through the whole thing. We beseech this new council to take concrete action to protect its most vulnerable people from the greed of predators. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you bringing this issue to this council. I sat on the last council, and I don't remember it ever coming to that council dealing with mobile home park redevelopment, so I'm not sure how the city has failed you, but nevertheless, we're at this turning point now. So at some point, this council will be able to sit down and have discussions over development in mobile home parks and discuss with our planning department where we go. We've got your information in our package. We've got what we've seen other communities do as far as policies. And we believe, as you do, that mobile home parks provide a proper and good way of affordable homes. So we understand where you're coming from, and as much as I can sympathize with you, that doesn't change where you're at.
Certainly doesn't.
I appreciate that. I've known you for a while, and I know the valid work that you've done in the community because you've done work in my buildings, and it's always been top-notch. So to see you leave is something that's a disappointment to me personally. So having said that, I'm going to ask if there's any of our councillors that have a question that they would like to ask of you or make a statement. And I want to thank you for taking the time to bring this to our attention, to bring this to this council, and it won't go unnoticed.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Councillors, if there's any of you that would like to ask a question of Mr. Tots, if you'd like to raise your hand and ask that question, you're more than welcome to do so. Councillor Charlotte.
Not a question, just a statement, just echoing Gary or Mayor Schultz. Thank you so much for bringing this up, especially the research you've done with some examples from other communities. I think there's some great examples there that we all will take a very good look at and see how we can improve Revelstoke's bylaws in order to support and protect you guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Elliott.
So your trailer court is being cleared out. Where's the other one that's being done? You said there were two other
I'm
courts?
not sure.
I'm not aware.
I thought you mentioned two.
That was my understanding, but I didn't have a chance to actually find out specifically which one. It shouldn't be that hard.
And how much notice, you sent about 300 pages by the time I tried to look through, but how much time were you allocated?
It was a year.
A year?
Yeah.
And the arrangement is so much per pad rent or double?
It's 2 years worth of pad rent.
2 years. And to relocate one of the trailers is probably about $10,000–$15,000.
I don't know. 2 trailers were moved out of our park. Neither one of them, to our knowledge, survived the move. Ours is older. We've got additions. There's nowhere in Revelstoke that would take us. We don't really have any options to move it. It's a 1976. It's got one final destination.
Yeah. Well, on a personal note, I've had a couple of trailers and modified them and tried to do renovations and bring them up to a current standard. And it's a long battle. I mean, the banks won't finance them. You can't get a mortgage on them.
Yeah.
There's some real issues with the manufactured home, and especially at a certain age. And the landlord's got an issue as well. A long-time guy, he has got to limit it to his rent increases. So it's an annual. It's a very difficult situation. And we created this 40 years ago.
Interesting conversation.
So all of a sudden now we're dealing with it now. So
Councillor Yonkers.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, John. I know you personally as well, and your situation quite well. And it's a tough one, and I feel for you, like we've discussed many times.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I actually have a question for the planning department, if that's all right. I'm not sure, Ms. Wade or Mr. Sturgeon. Just reading through the presentation since the agenda was released to us here, there's lots of other municipalities that have tenancy protection acts or bylaws for mobile parks, and the mayor had mentioned that obviously this is going to be coming or will be sitting down. Is there any sort of a timeline on when we could expect to begin those discussions with your department on what this is going to look like, or to expect a report about this?
I think, Councillor Yonkers, if I can just weigh in, because I haven't spoke to them about bringing this forward and dealing with that. They might not have that information for you at this point in time. Mr. Chabot.
Your Worship, as Council knows, one of the initiatives of the Planning Department this year is a comprehensive housing strategy, and certainly policies and procedures around mobile home park designations protection would be an important component of that, especially given the high percentage of mobile homes that exist as a percentage of housing stock in our community in particular. So I think Council can rest assured that that will be part of the discussion and the policy framework that's brought forward.
So just on that, Your Worship, then, and thank you, Mr. Chabot. So the housing strategy, I was understanding that we would be beginning that process this year, and that's good to know that it will tie in. Typically, from your experience, and are those strategies something that take years to develop, or
I've been involved with them being done in less than 6 months.
Okay, that's all I want to, awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, Mr. Tots, I want to again thank you for taking the time to bring this issue to us and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council Peoples. Do I leave this with anybody?
Yeah, they do.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks all.
So as we move along, we have another delegation, Revelstoke Mountain Resort. We'll go over their 2018-2019 operations, and Mr. Nielsen is here. Thank you, Peter.
Afternoon, Your Worship, honorable councilors. Thanks for having me. Really here to kind of give you an update on where we stand from an operational standpoint. I try to do this annually, usually in the fall, a little late this year, so we've had a lot going on, but thanks for taking some time to talk with me. I'll go through some of the highlights. I think you all probably may have had a chance to look at this, but happy to answer questions anywhere through. Interrupt me, don't mind, or we can do it again. So really kind of focusing on the 17-18 season and then what's happening in the current season, and then going kind of forward, looking forward to what some of our plans are and what to expect in the very near term. Some of the highlights, we celebrated our 10th anniversary of the 17-18 season. Probably saw that logo around everywhere. Really successful. We saw record snowfall on the mountain, a little over 12 meters, which was the biggest snowfall since opening, which made for great skiing and lots of happy people. Hopefully some of you got to enjoy it. Record visitation. We saw another significant growth last year. The growth that we do see at this point in our maturity is all through destination. You know, we've really kind of maxed out what the local population and what drivable populations will kind of visit us. And so all of our growth is really coming through people getting on, mostly on planes or driving longer than 3 or 4 hours to get here. 3 or 4 hours seems to be kind of that magic spot where people will stay overnight. So the real growth is coming through those avenues and overnight stays. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Big part of our growth is coming from the U.S. market for sure. You probably have felt it around town, I'm sure. We've met people over the last couple of years. We joined the Mountain Collective a couple of years ago, which really brought a spotlight to Revelstoke, the brand, in markets that are very difficult to penetrate as a small player. But by joining forces with the collective, which is some of the permanent mountains in North America and around the world, we got to kind of you get to share the spotlight, and particularly into some of those really dense urban markets where there's a lot of skiers. That's where these types of products do really well, and a lot of people in North America now know what Revelstoke is because of these types of partnerships, and that contributed very significantly to our growth, that collective partnership, which we did in 16-17, but really grew in 17-18. Our new partnership for this coming season, we signed with Altera Mountain Company. May or may not have heard of this, but it's known as the Icon Pass, which is kind of a counterplay to the Epic Pass, which you may or may not know about. But it's similar to the collective, but it's a larger, much larger pass holder base. 5 to 8 times as many pass holders on Icon as there is on Mountain Collective, and they're all basically mostly in the United States. And I'll talk a little bit about what that's had and how it has affected this year. But trust me, it's a big deal. We, in anticipation of our growth and in reaction to growth, we last season put on 25% increase on our 2 kind of main corridors for lifts. So there's 24 cabins added to both gondolas and 21 chairs to the Stoke chair, which added around 25% capacity to each one of those, and with great success. So we really felt very good about. Probably should have done it a year earlier, to be honest, but what we really saw impact and it had significant positive results on our guest experience, and so feeling really good about that. We completed our connection of Revelation Lodge into the city sewer system, which is a large project. It was a couple kilometers of pipe. And then we also did a sewage system at the top of Gondwa, so an independent sewage treatment, three-stage sewage treatment to allow us to build washrooms up there, which again, very good positive impact on our guest experience and allowed us to do some other things this last summer. Also signed a new partnership with Prenoth. Prenoth was a multi-year deal, which was really to modernize our grooming fleet. We were having grooming challenges, and this has had a significant impact on that. And we're in year 2 of that multi-year deal, but we'll move that a little bit further. And then as we moved into kind of the summer, we really, we've had the successful launch of the pipe a few years ago. And then we really shifted a focus onto our Upper Gondwa hiking product. Introduced last summer 13 kilometers of hiking and walking trails. And really we were able to drive a lot of visitation up into that upper area, which is where we see a lot of future growth. And we were quite happy with the results. The results were definitely muted by, I'm sure everyone remembers, the smoked out August we had. So, we didn't hit expectation. We were disappointed in our summer results last year, but they're still a lot better than 3 summers ago. So, and the reception to the products that we did introduce was very, very positive for those who experienced them. So, really feeling confident with that. There's some visuals to go along with it. Some highlights from this season so far. So some of the things we did last summer as far as that were having an impact onto this summer, onto this winter. We made some significant enhancements to the Ripper Zone, some run development, and really egress and to access and egress from that zone, which was a very significant project, required a lot of blasting and earth removal and movement to allow for basically a green in and a green out from our Ripper Zone, which we really designate as our blue skiing zone. As you probably all are aware, the reason we're famous is for an aggressive skiing product. We're really trying to add layers of experience for that not as experienced skier, the blue and green skier. And then you'll see as I go through some of the things we're planning, that we're really trying to speak to that market and allow them to kind of enjoy what Revelstoke has to offer and still have a good time skiing. So those enhancements of the Ripper Zone are stage 1 of many to create an intermediate and beginner zone that makes sense for progression. If you haven't been up to the hill this year, you don't know about that we've switched to RFID. RFID is it's the new technology. It's gates that allows you to reload your pass. It gives you a whole bunch of different technical aspects, and really in the morning when we have a larger lineup, it allows us to flow people a lot more smoothly, which really enhances what can be perceived as a negative experience on a big powder day. This allows us to move through people a lot quicker. Back to the sewage system and water that we added this previous summer, that allowed us to do extensive renovation to the Mackenzie Outpost and added a full commercial kitchen to that facility. And we were able to create a whole new experience there from food and then be able to liquor license it. So we have an entirely new experience there. I highly encourage you to go up there and try some of the items on there. They're fantastic. And look forward to doing even more stuff at the top of the Gondwa, but that's stage 1. Again, year 2 of our partnership with Prenoth, so we added another 2 additional cats to the fleet. So you'll see and feel it as you're skiing on the mountain, just how we're adding and improving that grooming product every year. It is a very large mountain, so it's challenging to groom and very steep. So far this year, I kind of put this together at the end of December, so fantastic December. Really, from a visitation standpoint, we set several records for attendance, single-day attendance, and overall it was record visitation. And why? We had a great start from a snow perspective up high. And the other big thing that was, we went on a new partnership with the Sunshine Pass, but the biggest driver was the Icon pass holders. So if you're in the grocery store, you probably met lots of even more Americans. The Icon Pass is to blame, and we welcome them with open arms. And it's been a fantastic partnership. 6 weeks into it, the results have been pretty amazing. There's some visuals. New restaurant. That's what the hamburger looks like. The right are your RFID gates. The new warming hat at the Ripper, probably the best view in Revelstoke maybe is from that warming hat. Highly encourage you to stop by and say hello. Looking towards 2019-20s, I focused on this slide and including things that were really quite, confirmed or advanced quite a ways. Our plan is, or we will be launching Lift Access mountain biking this summer, which is pretty exciting for a lot of people. So we were busy all last summer doing trail development. We'll be ready to launch that first top to bottom with a green and a blue trail as well in conjunction with that this year, was for Snow Freak on up high. And the intention behind that is that's phase one of multiple phases of trail development, and we hope to have upwards of 3 to 4 top to bottom trails for the following summer. So a lot of trail development in the plans for the summer, but encourage you to come, bring your bike up and take it for a ride. We're also embracing e-bikes as part of our kind of mandate on the mountain, so giving those who it's pretty difficult to access with an e-bike from most places in North America, so we're really embracing them. And so if you haven't ever tried one, you can come try it from our rental fleet. We will be adding a new summer attraction that will kind of complement the Pike Mountain Coaster, a really accessible project, an accessible attraction for that kind of soft adventure product, which is really kind of a very hot thing and really attractive to our summer clientele who are driving by the highway. I can't really give specifics on that quite yet, but shortly. We're hoping to be breaking ground on our hotel and conference center. It's always been our intention to do that. Should mention along with that, why do we want to build a new hotel? We've seen really good growth over the last 3 or 4 years, and that's why is that? For the ski business, our growth is completely related to, particularly for a destination like Revelstoke, where there isn't a large population to access around us. I kind of mentioned that earlier. We can't just go and grow by 20% because we convinced 20% more Vancouverites to come up. They got to stay somewhere. So we're completely, really at the mercy of how many beds we have for people to stay in. And we haven't quite hit it yet, but we're on the verge of hitting that kind of critical point where our growth will no longer, we won't be able to grow without additional beds for people to sleep in, to overnight in. That's why we were actually hoping to break ground on this last year, but hopefully, I'm sure if you're aware, we'll be talking about this later. Along with that hotel and conference center, it is our intention for that same kind of construction crew to be focusing on a staff housing building. But right now, the design has 88 units and a little over 150 beds in it. And that would be the project that we get partial way through the hotel, and then we'd start on, assuming we get permitting, we'd be starting on that project immediately afterwards. As we're going to, for multiple reasons, but as you can all imagine, but as we grow, we're going to need that space. And we're going to need an area to house our new staff, new future staff. So, also this year, we're putting in a fixed grip quad chairlift, and that's on our Machiavel plan lift 11. And that lift is about 2 things. It's about creating green skiing, and really part of it locks into our plan of creating a progressive learning zone at the top of Gondola. So along with putting that chairlift in, which creates some green skiing underneath it, we'll also be moving our beginner carpet up to the top of the gondola, and really moving our whole learning zone there for beginners. And then this would be your green chair that you progress to, and then you go take that chair up, because this chair now gives you direct access to the Ripper. So it also does some great things for that, beginner and intermediate market, but it also gives everyone who wants to get to the Ripper in the morning direct access without having to go to the Stoke. And for an intermediate skier, the Stoke can be quite intimidating. So it really kind of changes the experience for those intermediate skiers. So we're very, very excited to see that happen. And the intention behind that is to then add facilities, buildings that will support that ski school and learning zone at the top of Garland. But we can't do that this year, but hopefully very near future. Along with that, from a lift perspective, we're planning, or we will be doing, completing the Revelation gondola to maximum capacity. So that will be getting installed this summer. Stoke chair will be upgraded to full capacity as well. And the Ripper chair will put 20% or 24%, I think, is the total chair count. So the first phase of its upgrade to full capacity. And then along with that, we'll also be focusing very much so on the Ripper zone for terrain development and bringing that blue skiing zone further and further along so that we are enhancing that intermediate skier experience, where we truly do see a big opportunity for us to grow. We're very, very well known in that, in the expert skier community, but we're intimidating for a lot of people, and we're trying to soften that. And I think this talks a little bit more about what that chair looks like, where the zone is. So top view. There's a lid here. So that's top of gondola there. You'd actually ski down to the base of it, and then you've got some green runs coming off it. But if you ski up, if you come from the top of the gondola and ski down, take this chair off, and then you can go straight to the Ripper zone from here. The intention is also to put the total beginner zone with the magic carpet right in that area right there. One of the other reasons I failed to mention why we feel this is a really good idea is that as you all mostly live in the valley, you probably know that during the winter sometimes it rains or there is no snow or the snow comes late. This is really about creating an excellent experience for beginners in high quality snow with great views, and you're always in the snow zone. You're not out learning how to ski for the first time in the rain, which is not a pleasant thing to do. So that's really something to think about. I guess that's it. Can I answer any questions for anyone?
Well, Peter, that's exciting news for the community. Glad to see some of these projects going forward and new enhancements on the hill. Awesome, thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for Mr. Nielsen? Councillor Cross.
I have 5 concern areas, but I'll start with one. Mr. Nielsen, I noticed with all those plans, and they are amazingly great, so that's wonderful to see, but I notice a shocking absence, in my opinion, of any plan for staff housing.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
And I did mention that, as I said, when I put this together, I was focused on projects that we are 100% know that we've either they're in their planning stages, they're submitted, or we've signed off on. The staff housing wasn't in that zone when I did this together. But as I mentioned during my presentation, that it is the next construction project in the pipeline for us. So it would be immediately followed with, as we start the hotel, we would be going through the planning with the city planning department process to get our development permits for that. And I was hopeful that we'd be sharing our enhanced NDA, our addendum to our original NDA update today with council, but that just didn't work out. We'll be doing that with city staff tomorrow. And in that, you'll see the zone that we have planned to put in the first phase of housing, which is a multi-phase project.
Councillor Yonkers.
Sorry, I know Councillor Cross has 4 other questions. Can you clarify, what about this MDA update with city staff? What's that?
So we have, as you all know, we submitted MDA update in April of 2018. That went out, became a public document. There was lots of feedback from stakeholders and public in general. So then the province asked us to do an addendum that addressed questions, concerns, etc. from that public feedback, including the City of Revelstoke submissions. I think there's 8 points on there. So we've submitted that addendum back to the province in December, and now it's come back with further comments from them.
From the province?
From the province to us, which we're addressing, which is they're fairly minor, but it's just some mapping and things. And we're just sitting down with the planning department tomorrow to go over our draft so they can see what it looks like.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. It's a draft of the addendum.
Right.
Yeah.
Councillor Cross, you have another point?
I'm willing to stage my
Councillor
questions so
Elliott, you
other
have a question?
councillors have an opportunity.
Just on the NBA and all the improvements that you've got on Hill, it's been in collaboration with the Resort Development Branch. They're informed, they're aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. And as was welcoming and everyone knows, the on-hill, kind of, once we get past 100 meters of elevation or 200 meters of elevation of the resort, we exit city limits. We enter Crown land, and there's 2 overlapping jurisdictions there, CSRD and the province. But the main one is Crown land, so all of our permanent infrastructure is kind of governed by the Mountain Resorts Development Branch. And so yes, we can't do development with lifts or on mountain infrastructure without working with the Mountain Resort Development Branch to blessing, I guess, if you will.
Or the update that
Correct. Correct. A big part one of the biggest parts of that update is actually showing exactly where everything that you built is. That's a big part of it. So yes, short answer.
Councillor Cross.
Peter, I can't reiterate, I'll reiterate again that it's great to see RMR on the move and building again, but certainly the past 10 years has seen some trust eroded with the public on some issues. And the first one that comes to mind with that category of concern is the Turtle Creek issue.
Okay.
And the pollution that's happened there. Can you give us an update on where that is at?
Sure. Very unfortunate situation. So we were alerted that there was potentially something going on with the creek earlier this year. I think it was in January, not this year, January 2018. So an investigation happened. It was concluded that there was nothing with some testing. So it was put to